Hello everybody and welcome to Out of the Blue. We have a slightly different episode for you this week. I was lucky enough recently to be invited on to give an interview to Sophie Clark as part of her break time interviews for the Friday Club, which is run by our friends over at Virtual School Experience. Sophie and I chatted through lots and lots of different issues and particularly looked at how multi-academy trusts are upping their game with regards to their marketing and communications to make them very powerful when it comes to their growth and their growth strategies and how they attract new schools. There's lots and lots of different things that we chatted about, so hopefully you'll get a lot from the interview. I certainly enjoyed being invited on, so here you go.
Welcome to this week's issue of the Friday Club Break Time with interview feature. This week, I'm really looking forward to speaking with Mark Davis of Blue Apple Education. Mark, thank you so much for joining me today.
No, thanks for having me, Sophie. Great to be here.
Really pleased that you are here. For us, it's really interesting to have a marketing and admissions expert who's working across the MAT sector as well as independent international schools. So thank you so much for coming and sharing your expertise with us today.
No problem.
With my virtual school experience hat on, I know that there is an increase in focus on marketing in the MAT sector here in the UK, and that you're heavily involved with MATs. Is that your experience too?
Yeah, I think slowly but surely, I think that the MAT sector is certainly waking up to developing sort of a strategic approach to marketing that you'll have seen in the independent and international markets. And they've started sort of drawing on the experience of marketing consultants and trying to bring in that professionalism. And I think that's largely been driven by their development of a growth strategy. So lots and lots of MATs now approach us in a different way. So they'll be talking to us about the challenges they're facing in terms of their own growth. And they've got these very clear ideas as to where they want to be in 12 months, 3 years, 5 years. And that's a big shift, if we're honest. I think prior to that, very often in the state sector, marketing was very much product focused. We'd be approached by people that would literally tell us, we need a new prospectus, we need a new website, we need a new promotional film. And it would be up to us to sort of take them back a few steps to understand the motivation behind why we're being approached for a particular product, because there was a lack of strategy there. Very often it was, well, we've got an old website, so we need a new one. That's, okay, well, maybe that's the reason why the conversation has started, but that's not what you need a website to do. What's it designed to achieve? What does it need to, what do you need it to happen? So I think slowly but surely, yes, there is a strategic approach that's developing. I'd say it's in its infancy, Sophie, if I'm honest. And it will develop over time.
Is this, for anybody listening that might be coming across Blue Apple Education for the first time, would you like to tell us a bit more about what you do for MATs that are approaching you with these sorts of questions?
Yeah, that might help, mightn't it? We're a creative design company, and we work exclusively within education. So all of our clients are schools and colleges and multi-academy trusts. We do work across both sectors. So we do have clients in the independent sector, some international schools, mainly in the UK, but we also do have clients in North America, Europe, the Middle East. So we're a small team, really focused, again, as I've just mentioned, really on that, helping schools strategize what they do, and really getting to grips with what a school needs from its marketing and communications, what a trust needs from marketing and communications, and understanding that. So again, our approach is not really product focused. We deliver school websites and prospectuses and promotional films, logo and branding projects, anything that a school or a trust needs to market or communicate. But we do that very much from a results driven perspective. So we're really looking at making sure that what we deliver is designed to achieve what the client effectively needs it to do.
Wonderful. So I bet you have some really interesting conversations then with schools about what results they'd like to achieve.
Yeah.
Are there any specific key issues or focuses for MATs right now in terms of marketing and admissions that you come across frequently?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there are. There's definitely some common themes there. Something that crops up all the time, actually, and is probably a hangover from a historical development of multi-academy trusts, is around those sort of public perceptions of what a MAT is. And why it exists. So sometimes the work that we do really is helping people get a handle on having a louder voice than, you know, the British press. The British press have loved to jump on the negatives of multi-academy trusts, the well publicized massive salaries of a CEO. You know, they're just easy stories to jump on, and they're a drop in the ocean when you compare the wonderful work that multi-academy trusts have done across the UK. So that's certainly one aspect. But I think another one really has been the recognition since COVID, really, of a need for a move towards a sort of a digital offering for parents, and that's been really key. They've sort of woken up to the idea that without being able to get parents through the door, very similar to, I'm sure, as you've seen in the independent sector.
Yeah.
They've really needed to offer parents an alternative to that. And I think what's interesting is that now has become commonplace and will remain. It's not going to go away. And even with all the restrictions being lifted with COVID, even now parents can still visit, there's a recognition that actually we can be marketing this school 24/7. Parents can access this. Busy, discerning parents looking to make a decision could actually be hearing a message from the head teacher and looking at our school at 11:30 at night and seeing that visual representation of who we are.
Really.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's accelerated the strategy and the planning for a lot of the academy trusts that you work with.
Yeah, again, I think similar to independent. I think I think COVID accelerated lots of things. It certainly moved technology on, changed my life, changed the way that I talk to schools. I went from 32,000 miles a year to, I think I did 250 miles during.
Yeah, crazy.
And still talking to as many schools, probably speaking to more schools and developing stronger relationships with them because we talk more often. It's easier to jump on a Zoom call and have that conversation. So I think that they're the sort of key issues, and then the things that have always been there. Staff recruitment has always been an issue for those for multi-academy trusts. Bums on seats is key. It's pupil numbers. That's what we're all aiming to solve for them.
And I think that's the case, whichever type of school it is, whether it is an academy, whether it's an independent school or another type of school. Do you think in multi-academy trust, there's also this aspect of the school needing to be attractive to other schools that may consider joining that trust, if that makes sense?
Whether the schools need to be attractive for that, well, yeah, probably they do. I think lots of the conversations I have with the trusts now are all about that expansion and growth. The 100% academisation is growing in terms of its pace. It will happen. That is the way things are going. You're not going to find schools forming single school academies anymore. It's just not going to happen. So those schools that haven't academised yet are going to be looking for trusts to join, or are going to be looking for other schools to form a multi-academy trust with. More often than not now, they're probably looking at an established trust in order to gain that sort of expertise. So yeah, the trust needs to be attractive to the schools that want to join it. And I think the key there is trusts have recognised recently that it's not just a numbers game. There's the obvious benefit of bringing on a school. Well, not always. You could have a struggling school with very low pupil numbers, in which case it can be difficult to bring that in financially. But very often schools look at growth, and it's a numbers game. It's if we take that school on, we will grow the finances of the trust, and we will build and develop the trust. It's much more than that, and I think trusts are becoming really quite discerning about the character and the nature of the schools that they're looking to attract. So they're effectively looking to attract the right school, not just any school. And I think that's key, because it's very, very difficult to blend two different ethoses and two different visions and ways of working. You really do need schools that are going to buy into the way that a trust operates and what it believes in and its approach to curriculum, for example. There are those trusts that are really looking for those dynamic head teachers and a head teacher that can bring something to the trust, and bring skills and develop the trust in that way. So yeah, absolutely. A lot of the conversations we have now are with trusts asking us, how can we do this? How can we look to be the trust of choice? Because, there are 3 locally and we want to stay local. So there's a limited number of schools that we want to attract.
Okay, so do these academy trusts, in your experience, have to find what makes them different to those, I guess, competitors?
Yeah, they do. You've got to be careful there, because I think there's a tendency to try and differentiate for the sake of doing it, and that can lead to you really having a sort of false brand messaging. And so what's important, really, perhaps more important than differentiation from another trust, is that actually you've got a voice that is honest and transparent and true to who the trust is, and that is done really effectively. So the work that we do with trusts in terms of their branding, the first thing that we do really is we call it unearthing the remarkable. And it's our way of sort of getting control of what that looks like. So that's our commitment to a trust, to making sure we understand who they are, what their values are, why they exist, what is it that they believe in, and what are they trying to achieve. In an ideal world, what is the nature and the character of their trust. And then making sure that is then reflected in the way that they market and the way that they communicate. So the way that they present themselves to the outside world is true to who they are. When you do that, you do by default differentiate yourselves from the competition. It's very unusual for any one trust to have an identical vision and ethos to any other, really.
Absolutely. So it's about the mission then and what you stand for.
Yeah, absolutely. It has to be. And that's very, very powerful. It really develops a brand story. So the brand becomes so much more than the visual aspect and the professional look of a trust. It becomes something that you can hang your hat on, really, and that schools can buy into. And that really helps with another question that we get asked by trusts all the time, which is, how do we blend our brand character with the individual nature of the schools that form our trust? Because it's really important. Parents are buying into the nature and the character of an individual school. It's very rare that they're going to buy into the nature and character of a trust. There are a few trusts out there that are very corporate and will kind of parachute in their identity onto a school, but I'm not convinced that works, and there are very few of them that have done it effectively. So that having a very clear character can lend itself to giving schools something that they can start to adopt into their own branding and marketing that doesn't negate their own nature and character in the way they present themselves.
Really. So as an individual school, as part of a multi-academy trust, how can we balance this idea of marketing as a trust and marketing as an individual school? Is that something that you help trusts with?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's tough. It's a real tough ask. It's probably the hardest thing that, from a marketing point of view, that a trust is going to get to grips with. I think it comes back to what I was just talking about there. Really, I think it's finding a common theme that the schools can adopt. So the biggest mistake that people make in the education sector about branding is that they try and put everything into that visual aspect of their brand. So as we develop a logo, for example, for a trust or for a school, they'll say, we absolutely love it, but it doesn't quite encapsulate this part of our brand. And it doesn't have to, because you've got so many ways in which your brand is going to be reflected. Your brand is your logo, but your brand is also your tone of voice and the way that you communicate and the way that you market.
Yeah.
When you find those key messages, so you've got your visual identity, but then you've got key messages that really resonate with people, they can become the things that can be consistent amongst your schools as well. So your school can have its own character and its own nature, but it can refer back to the values of a trust and talk about the values of a trust when they communicate. And that's how the brand of a trust starts to be communicated within the marketing of that school without ever diluting their own brand. So it's quite subtle, and it takes a little bit of time, and it can be quite painful for the
Yeah.
trust to go through because it's quite inward looking and it's quite critical at times. But if you can get a handle on it, it's really, really powerful. It can really start to pay dividends.
Absolutely. And it sounds like a similar challenge to some of the groups of fee paying schools might come across, because they've got individual schools and with a group name. Do you think that there's anything that fee paying schools can learn from the way that multi-academy trusts approach marketing and comms?
Yeah, I do actually. I think the biggest thing they can learn is a trust in their suppliers.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is that multi-academy trusts are in their infancy. There's none of them more than maybe 10 years old. And they were very much involved in developing their trust and developing their curriculum for many years. So actually, they're really in their infancy in terms of their adoption of strategic marketing and how they market their trust. So what they're doing is they're going out to businesses like ourselves and to marketing consultants and strategy consultants, and making demands on those specialists and really drawing on the expertise of those people to provide a solution. So really challenging them to provide a solution to them. I think what's happened in the independent marketplace over a number of years is that they've employed sort of marketing professionals who then want to guide the creative. They it seems odd to me that, for example, for a company like yours, that you would employ a professional design business and then dictate how you want the design to look and how you want things. So there's that sort of micromanagement that very often happens in the independent market. And it's a mistake, because what you actually really need to do is to make those demands. Look, this is what we need. These are the challenges we face. We need a website that solves the fact that we're 10 pupils short for next September. And I don't really care how we're paying you to show us what it should look like. We're paying you to show us what that user journey should be, what the calls to action should be, how we should be presenting ourselves. That is strategically what I need you to produce. And I think that's been lost a little bit. Not all the time, obviously. I think I'm generalizing hugely there, but very often with independent schools, there's that micromanagement that happens that can be a mistake, I think.
Yeah, so at Blue Apple Education, you're real experts in supporting schools with websites and branding more generally. Are there any insights that you would share in terms of what schools should be thinking about as they look to sharpen up their websites for the new school year?
Yeah. I think there's a number of things. The first one would be to look back at what I mentioned before, that the unearthing the remarkable. Quite a simple thing to do, really. So make sure you've got a handle on the remarkable and what makes your school tick. Who are you? What are you about? What's your nature? What's your character? And does everybody agree with that? Ask stakeholders within the school, ask parents, ask pupils, ask the staff, ask governors, just ask everybody. What do they think is remarkable about the school, and make sure that there's some consistency to what that looks like. And when you've got a handle on it, then take a very discerning look at your own website. And is that being reflected? Are you giving off the right first impression? Someone lands on your homepage or on a landing page if you've got some digital marketing happening. And is that the first impression that they get? Are they learning who you are and what's important about you and why they should consider you as their school of choice? And the second thing I'd say is then look at how your website is actually driving admissions. And there's a number of elements to that. You've got is it wowing people? Are you really knocking their socks off? Do they think this is fabulous? Because they should. Is there an easy user journey? Are you taking people through a story so that it's doing a sales job, and it's convincing, it's winning the hearts and minds of people that visit it. And then are there strong calls to action that are driving those people to make an inquiry, to actually engage with the school? And they're the biggest mistakes I see on school websites all the time, is that they're nicely designed, but from a driving admissions point of view, they just don't work. That's not happening.
And a website, I guess, has to cater for so many different audiences that can be a real challenge for schools across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that needs to be considered at the front end. That should be included at the briefing stage. So your supplier, whoever you're using to develop a website, should be asking those questions. So it should be very, very clear. We are creating a website to satisfy the needs of the following people, and they are going to need the following things from the website. And then again, that's up to the design company to solve that for you. Don't dictate to them how that should look. Let them show you how they're going to answer that challenge, because they should, they'll have come across it before. If that's what we come across that all the time. Very rarely we get asked a question by a school we've not heard.
That's really interesting. If we're talking on that topic of admissions, Mark, what's your take on open days for the new academic year? Do you think that they'll stay virtual? Do you know any schools planning to go back to in-person open days?
I think that virtual open days are here to stay. And as I mentioned earlier, I think that we've woken up to the idea that we can be selling a school 24/7 and that parents can access that sort of information. So we've produced lots and lots of promotional films for schools, and they were once they were once something that independent schools could access and use, and actually now more and more state schools, literally hundreds of them all the time. So they're now existing, and they sit on a website, and parents can access that anytime. So I think what you're going to find is there's going to be a blend between the two. I think what that virtual solution and some of the things that you guys deliver as well give you the opportunity to be there all the time and to reach many, many more people. And I think what will happen is that actually the physical visit will become a second step. It would be the next step in the process of onboarding a parent, and a very nice second step that fits into what is just a bit of a broader process.
And one of the things I've spoke to, of course, speaking more with independent and international schools, is that they really like the idea that a parent will be a bit warmed up to the culture, what they're going to see when they come in person to visit. And I really like that approach for a school, that you can give a parent an idea of what they what they should expect before they walk in the doors. And I really like that connection.
Yeah, I think it helps. It helps develop how the brand is presented, really. And what I mean by that is, if your staff the staff within the school can also watch that promotional film, or can access the virtual tour and get a sense of what goes on, and maybe get a sense of how they should be presenting the school themselves and how they should talk about the school. Because I think that's something that has often been missing, is a recognition that a brand is reflected in everybody in the school. So the brand is something that's discussed by, in a state school, you might have a marketing manager, but very often a head teacher, deputy head, school business manager. That's it. Maybe some other members of the SLT, but very few. So teachers don't hear it, reception staff don't hear it. And they're really important part of the branding experience of a school. So they need to understand how the school should be presented. So I think it's a great development.
Oh, I can really tell, Mark, that you're really passionate about your work with schools. One of the questions we always like to ask when we wrap up our break time with interviews is, what do you enjoy most about working in this sector?
Yeah, I do love it. I'm so pleased that you've sensed that I'm enthusiastic about it, because I do love it, and I've not always worked in the education sector. So my background is finance and banking, and then the print industry, and then I came into education late in life. I'm older than I look, and Yeah, the sector is, I think there's two things. The first one would be that there's a real collaboration within education and suppliers within education that you just don't get in other industries. And it's a genuine want to share information and to share expertise. So since I came into education about 6 years ago, I've not only developed fabulous relationships with clients, but also fabulous relationships with other suppliers that in other industries might be considered to be competition or perhaps treading on your toes. And that just doesn't occur in education. We all try and work collaboratively. And I think that's down to the motivation of most of us. Most of us want the best outcomes for clients. And if we see an opportunity for another supplier, then we're more than happy to bring that supplier in because it's the right thing for our client. It's the right thing for them to do. And there's nothing worse than seeing schools spending money on the wrong thing, on marketing that's never going to do what they need it to do, kind of hoodwinked into doing something that isn't right. And the second thing I think is results. I'd love seeing a multi-academy trust that actually has a challenge. We talk a lot about it, we put solutions in place, and 6 months, 12 months later, I can sit in the same office and we've nailed it. We've done it. We've got to where we needed to get to. There is nothing better than that feeling. That's fantastic. I love that. Yeah, that would be it, I think.
If any school listening to this wants to check out Blue Apple Education or perhaps be in touch, where can they go to find out more info, Mark?
Yeah, so they can jump on our website, which is blueappleuk.com. We'll put a link on at the end of this. And also for anybody that really feels like they're the starting point of trying to learn about marketing and communications in the school, I run a branding and identity masterclass every month. And it's something that any school can jump on. It's an hour and a half, it's online, and it really is an introduction into school branding and marketing, why it's important. And it gives 3 key steps to a school to basically help them assess how effective their marketing is being, and gives them some pointers as to how they can start to look at improving that. And most of those are free to do. They're things that you can just look at and change and make some amendments to the way that you're working. So anybody interested in that, again, there's more details about that on our website.
Thank you so much for that, Mark. I've really enjoyed talking to you today. You've been a brilliant guest, and we hope to have you again as an expert speaker on the Friday Club.
Brilliant. No, thank you so much for your time. I've really enjoyed answering your questions. I hope I provided enough information for everyone. Anyway.
Thank you for watching out of the video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe and leave a comment below, and please ring the bell for notifications. I hope I will see you again soon. Bye!